All right, let's talk what peaked means. Okay, when you prepare your starter to bake with. You see this? See this jar? How the domey part's almost coming to an end. It's starting to sink into itself. That means this is almost peaked. Peaked means the most active your yeast is going to be when you bake with it. This is all peaked means is, okay? So I'm gonna try to draw this out to you and explain this to you the best way I've learned. And it took me a long time to learn that, okay? Because people just say, make sure your starter's peaked, make sure it's active. Well, what the heck does that mean? Okay, let's get into it. All right, let's start down here, okay? When I first prepared this starter, yesterday evening before I went to bed, it was basically inactive yeast, okay? So down here, when it was right here, instead of way up here, it was yeast and lactic acid, okay? And what happened, because I fed it water and flour, I fed the lactic acid and the yeast water and flour, the yeast started growing. And it's coming all the way up here. Okay, now we're here. See that little dome? Okay, and I drew these little circles for yeast. The little yeast, it's those little bubbles. It's that the lactic acid and the yeast are creating. The wild yeast. It's creating these little bubbles. Okay, so here's our little wild yeast up here. Follow along, okay? All right, so this is it. It's reached its top potential, the wild yeast, okay? It's saying, I'm ready to bake. It's coming around the corner, getting ready to tell you it's ready to bake. And once it reaches this corner, this dome that you will see on the top of your jar will start to sink in like that. It'll still be to the top, this is the top, but it'll come all the way over here, right? And then it'll start doing this little curvage inside your jar, just like that. And once it starts, the yeast starts swinging down here, it's saying, I'm ready to bake, let's go, let's make a beautiful loaf of bread. This is when your starter is at its peak, right when it starts dipping. See the dome? It came over here, it started to sink in a little bit. We still have this part, it's just starting to dome in. That bubble's no longer existing. This means peaked. Right at this point, okay? Now granted, it's still going to start falling a little bit, okay? Hence, you'll see those little squiggly lines like that at the bottom, and then here's your starter right below that, okay? That means it's starting to fall. It's starting to go back to being inactive. But it's still active enough because it had such a high ratio of food in it. It's happy. It's still happy. This is the happy zone right here. Right here. So you can still bake with it. If you miss this and it's still a little bit of squiggly lines, you still got active, okay? So what happens is now your yeast is done being active, hint, active yeast. It's going to start going back to sleep. It's going to start coming back down. All right, and then, when it sinks down at the bottom, here's, you got all your squiggly lines, and then here's your yeast, or your starter, right? It comes back down here, it sinks all the way to the bottom. It's going back to bed. It's done. Its tummy's full, it's happy, it's going back to sleep for a while. Okay? Now what happens is when your yeast is coming up here, okay, it's building, your lactic acid is also moving, okay? Hence, lactic acid is what makes your bread sour, okay? So your yeast is coming up, it's doing its job. Here comes your lactic acid, and your lactic acid is slower than your wild yeast. So as the yeast is rising, okay, let's do a line. Here's your yeast, it's going up. Your lactic acid is slowly creeping up to it. It's catching up. So here's your lactic acid, here's your yeast. It's coming up, and this is slowly creeping, okay? Okay, your yeast is here. It's coming back over. Your lactic acid, it's still traveling. It's still slowly, and your yeast is already ready. It's beat its buddy all the way to the punch. It's ready. Here comes your lactic acid. It's slowly going. Okay, it's still not there yet. It still hasn't kicked in yet. Okay. So hence, here's your yeast. It's active. It's peaked. Your lactic acid won't kick in and start being super sour until you take your dough gets ready to shape. Okay, once your dough starts getting ready to shape, now here comes the lactic acid. And it's here. It's hanging out with you when you're making your dough. You're mixing your dough and you're doing all those things and you're letting it set. Here, now your lactic acid's kicking in. Okay, now your yeast has done its job. It's, bulking up your dough. It's doing what it needs to do. Okay, here comes your lactic acid. It's still working its way throughout your period of you making your dough. It's kind of working its way through the dough and the gluten strands and all those good things. And so what happens is at the end of you shaping your dough and you're prepping it, you're either putting it in your banneton basket or your, bowl or whatever you're using, it's still working because it takes so much time to grow. It's still working. And I'm talking like 8 hours later, it's still working. It's still creeping up there, right? So what happens is when you just make your dough on the counter and you go ahead and bake it, your lactic acid is still trying to catch up with the yeast. So it's here. It's in your bread. It's just not very sour. It's a little sour, but it's not that tang, that sourdough tang, right? What happens is when you put your bread in the fridge overnight, okay, this is what your lactic acid does, okay? Here's the end of we shaped our dough, okay? Your lactic acid is still climbing. Your dough's in the fridge. Now it goes like this. It takes way over. So your yeast slows down in the fridge. It's pretty much coming to the end of its life. And what it needs to do, it's coming until you bake it, okay? But your lactic acid is going, it's my time to shine. So if you leave your dough in the fridge overnight or 24 hours, that's when you get your lactic acid to reach its peak potential, okay? You'll still have potential when it's sitting on the counter right here and, you're going to bake it the same day or you're leaving it in the fridge for a couple hours. But your yeast reaches its potential way faster than your lactic acid does. Okay? So that's what peaked means in a nutshell. Okay. I'm posting this video right real for you. This is the best way I can explain it, okay? This is what peaked means. This is what your yeast does, okay? All etc. And this is what your lactic acid does. Okay, so let's just put all this in a nutshell before we end, okay? So your yeast takes a certain amount of time to peak. The peak means when the dome starts falling down. It means it's the most potential you're ever going to get out of your active wild yeast, okay? Active yeast, okay, before it starts going back to sleep. Your lactic acid, which hence is your sour taste, doesn't really come up to shine. Like you'll still have it sour after your yeast is kind of, it showed up. It showed up and it bulked that dough right up. Your lactic acid won't show up until you leave it in the fridge for 18 to 24 to 48 hours. It really won't. Your lactic acid won't show its full potential unless you leave it in the fridge overnight or the next day. So with that being said, this is what people say when they mean make sure you get your starter at peaked. So I don't know if this helped or not. I'm still posting it either way on my channel. With that being said, I hope this helped you understand it a little bit better. May the odds forever be in your favor, you guys, on your sourdough journey, and keep blazing your trail.